Hello there everybody and welcome back to Mastering Avantra. Today's topic is all about Avantra add-ins for enterprise subscription customers. So I'm going to show you where you can find them, and I'll take one and show you how it works and we can deploy it in an Avantra system. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is my Avantra system we'll be working on today, and so it is registered with an Avantra enterprise license, and I want to deploy some of these add-ins I've heard about. So where do I start? So the first thing I encourage you to do is to go to our support website at support.avantra.com. If you do not have a login for this website, please just raise a ticket with us at support@avantra.com and we'll get that sorted for you. Now in here you'll find all our knowledge base articles, etc., etc. And if you scroll down you'll find a section which is visible to enterprise customers called Avantra Add-ins. And if you click on this, you'll see the add-ins that are available to you. Now, today you can see there's two available to me. So I have Avantra on Avantra. And so this add-in is designed to give you visibility into the health of your Avantra installation itself. So it's a collection of about 12 custom checks, which allow you to build a business service that give you visibility into security, the operating system, database, APIs, and some error self-checks as well. So this is a really cool add-in that I really encourage customers to have a look at. It is very easy to set up and to install. All it requires is that you have an agent on the Avantra master server itself so they can do some self-monitoring. So let's go back to Avantra add-ins. Sorry, wrong one here. So Avantra add-ins. And we'll see here the second one, and this is the one we're going to look at in more detail today, is SuSE Hardening. So this SuSE Hardening add-in is based on the SuSE Hardening guide that SuSE themselves provide. And I'm going to show you how we deploy it on a SuSE 15 SP3 system, which I have going. And it is a collection of 8 custom checks, which are specifically designed based on that hardening guide. Doesn't cover everything in the guide. They're designed to be extensible by you to match your organizational requirements. But let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, we're going to come in here and we're going into the version 1.0. So there's the overview document, which gives you that visibility of what's in it. And then there'll be different versions depending on when it's been released. Pop into the 1.0 and you'll see we have this zip file here, which we can download. So we're going to click it and download it. And it's a pretty small download, so it should come down pretty quickly. And now let's pop over and have a look and see what's inside it. So I'm just going to switch over to a different window here. So I'll pop in here. And you can see AA for Avantra Add-in, Hard, SuSE 1.0. Now inside in this file, you'll find a few things. And this is pretty common for most of our add-ins. So the first thing you'll see is an overview guide. So this is a lengthy PDF giving you a detailed description of what the add-on in is, what benefits it can bring you, what are the minimum requirements for deploying it, how to implement it, and roughly how long it'll take you to do. This one says less than 1 hour. It's actually a lot less than 1 hour. And some of the other stuff that you need to do as well. It gives you some configuration items that you may need to think about. So for example, stuff we can't deliver as single-click imports like custom monitoring parameters. In this case, if you have any banned binaries that you do not want to see installed in any of your machines, we create that as a custom monitoring parameter, or in this case, allowed application ports. What ports are allowed to be open on your systems, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and get started. So the custom checks, which is the folder here called custom checks, delivers PDFs on each of the individual custom checks that you will have in here. And this is deliberate because we've designed these so that you can take them, enhance them, and make them your own. So we're not being shy about showing how we're doing things, but we do provide this all checks zip.zip, imaginatively named. So let's pop back to our Avantra system and let's go ahead and import that. So I'm going to go to configuration and to custom checks, and let's just see if we have any of these imported already. Okay, we don't. So I'm going to say more, import custom checks, and I'm going to upload that zip file we saw a few moments ago. So in custom checks and custom checks zip.zip. So we'll open this, give it a couple of seconds to upload, and hit next. Now immediately what we're seeing here is the 8 custom checks that are delivered as standard. So let's just import them all like this. I'm not going to assign them to a specific customer. I don't have to. You can, of course, if you so choose. I'm just going to leave them as generic, and then I'm going to hit import. Now, by default, all these custom checks are imported as deactivated because you need to do a couple of extra steps. So first of all, let's pop into the first one, and you'll see here we have some prefixes, AA for Avantra Add-in. We have hard for it's a hardening related check, SuSE for the fact that it's related to SuSE, and then it's check number 1, kernel parameter self-check. So let's pop into this one, and you can see you have full visibility and access to the source code of how the check works, and it's heavily documented so that you can go ahead and change it should you need to. So what do we need to do? We need to provide information about where we want this check to execute. So I'm going to select a predefined system selector, and I have one already created called SuSE 15.3 systems. And if I test, you'll see I have a server called gdevsd-maag1, which is ready to go there. So I hit apply and I hit activate, and now that check will be sent to that system. So I'm going to quickly do this for all the checks. So quickly select the system selector, apply and activate, just like this. And we're going to just, and for example, in the Avantra on Avantra, you would have different system selectors, all of which is documented. For example, we had some checks that would be only executed at the database level, some checks which are executed on the application server level. So while this one is quite easy, it's all going to the server side. It's pretty consistent in where they're ending up. You may have a situation where you would actually want to send these to different selectors depending on your requirements. And so that's the last one there now. Now some of these I will happily admit ahead of time will fail because there's some extra configuration we have to do, but that's okay. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's go find our system. So we're going to go to Systems and Servers, and MAAG1 running SuSE 15.3. That's the one we were interested in. And if we pop into checks, we can see that some of these have already made their way to the system. So, for example, UMask verification, if we pop into this, you'll see UMask appears to be set to the correct value of 0022 as per the hardening guide, and we give a link to that hardening guide as well. Let's look at some of the other ones. Installed packages checks. Oh, this is a really cool one. So this gives you a full list of everything that's installed. So for example, if we look for Java, we can see that Java 1.8 OpenJDK and the headless one is installed. And this is really useful as well if you want to do some auditing. And you'll also see here that analysis complete with no illegal binaries identified. One of the things we've done with this check is allow you to specify if there are specific illegal binaries you do not want to see. And it's all fuzzy searching. So if you don't want a certain phrase that you know might be, indicate a compromised binary, for example, or something like that, we can show you how to do that. Let's have a look at what else we got here. Listening ports. So what ports are currently listening on this? We got 22, that's fine. 22, that's fine. 9051, which is our agent port. And you see what the bound address is as well. Let's do a refresh here and see what else we got. So with the kernel parameter self-check and the security patch check, they're unable to execute, and I'll show you why in a moment. And then with the user account self-check. So this is where, okay, so this is actually got a problem. It's not, we've not followed the configuration guide. So let's go back to the configuration guide and see why is this one red and why are these two staying as unknown. So we go back to our overview document, which has gone onto a different screen. Put it up here. And so let's go to steps for installation. Let's go down. Sudo privileges. So guess what? There are 3 checks, the 3 that didn't work, that require elevated privileges to execute the required commands. They're listed below. Avantra recommends separating out the privileges, etc., etc., etc. So what we have is checks number 1, 7, and 8. Let's check this. So 7, 1, and 8. Guess what? They're the ones that failed. Require specific allowed commands to be executed as root. Now this is completely normal practice. What we do is we add a sudo file that says the service user under which the agent is running has the ability, with no password, to execute specific commands. And these are specific read-only commands. Again, feel free to audit these. If you don't agree with giving access to run these commands, you know what? Don't run the check. It's no problem. We're just showing you what's possible here. And these are all based on the hardening guide. So what we've also delivered in here is a sample sudo file. Now this is what I'm going to take to make my life a little bit easier. So you see here I have a what's the entry for the check number 1, the verifying kernel parameters? What's the entry for the user account self-check? And what's the entry for the security patches? So let's pop over and see if we can't test some of these. So let's get the IP address first of our system, which is this one here. And let's go ahead and log in. So I'll just make this a little bit bigger so folks can see. And put this here, like that. So I'm going to say SSH bro at that. Oh, forgot my at symbol. Okay, so now we're logged into the system. So I'm going to bring us up to, and this is all documented in that PDF as to how to do this. So I'm going to say sudo su to bring myself up to root. It's really dangerous to edit sudo as files when not as root, because if you make a mistake, you can actually break the ability to log in as sudo in the first place. Been there, done that, wouldn't want you to have the t-shirt. So now we're logged in, and so if we do a who am I, we'll see I'm logged in as root. And so I'm going to go to cd etc sudoers .d, and you'll see here I have one in here for Avantra already. Let's have a look at that. Okay, so these are actually related to the agent. So these are the 3 entries that we recommend you put in for allowing the agent to auto update itself. So let's append to the end of that file. So let's go vi Avantra. So my favorite text editor, vi, it's really not. But let's go ahead and add these sample entries that we provided. So these 3, like this, like that. And so what this will allow us to do is to execute the required commands. So you'll see here, this one here allows us to look at kernel parameters. This one here allows us to do a self-check on the user accounts. And this one here allows us to search to see if there are any available security patches using the standard package manager zipper. So once we're done, we're done. Now don't exit from the root user at this point. Let's verify that what we entered didn't have any typos, and we're not about to break any of the sudo options. So we're going to check the file Avantra. Okay, Avantra parsed okay. We're safe. We can come back out. Right, so we've made that entry to the sudoers file. Let's pop back in here. And let's pop into the user account self-check first and say execute now. Execute. So what that does, and you'll see here with the green up here, is it sends the command to the agent to say, hey, listen, rerun this custom check. And give us the result. And so that result will come back sometime in the next couple of 10, 15 seconds usually is what it takes. And what we're going to do is while we're waiting for that one to come back, let's go down and tell these ones to execute as well. So execute and execute like that. And there we go. So you can see here that number 7, user account self-check is all okay. No accounts appear to have issues. And again, there's a link to where we get the information, what we're checking for, and all this kind of stuff. Kernel parameter self-check is now showing, which is really cool. So we have 0 errors and 1 warning. So the current value is shown, but also the hardened value is shown. So here we see ICMP echo ignore all. If you want or need Linux to ignore ping requests, then enable this option by default. This is a warning if allowed. It's not the end of the world, but it's something that they recommend you consider. And so this is, again, something you can enhance and say, you know what, I have specific organizational requirements for my self-check. If I go to configure check here, and I'll make this full screen, you can actually see here the way we've done this is pretty much designed for you to be able to add whatever you want in here. So for example, here are the self-checks. There's the parameter we're searching for. What's acceptable? What's the description? What's the remediation comment that we like to report? And what should we report if it doesn't match this value? And if we go down here to the ICMP echo ignore all, you'll see it set to warning, which is why we only got a warning with the previous one. Again, all our sources open here so that you can actually look at this yourself and build on top of it yourself. To build it to whatever you need it to be. So there we go. We have taken the Avantra add-in for SuSE Hardening based off of the SuSE Hardening guide as provided by SuSE. We've downloaded it from the support website, support.avantra.com, in the add-in section. We installed it into our Avantra system. We followed the instructions in the PDF to add some extra privileges, which is not always required, but it was in this case for a few of the checks. and then we deployed those checks onto a remote system that was already being monitored, and we saw the output. So this is the start, and this is the first couple of Avantra add-ins that are going to be available for enterprise customers. We hope you like them. If you feedback, if you suggestions, if there's stuff you want to see, please let us know. We'll add it to our backlog. But for now, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.